pro scolae Latinae Brooklynienses provisore hodie vos libenter accipio. On behalf of the headmaster of the Brooklyn Latin School, I would like to welcome discipuli, magistri, staff, and their parents, siblings, and anyone who is quarantined with members of the TBLS community to the first ever remote public declamation. Declamation is an ancient tradition which holds a central place in Brooklyn Latin academics and school culture. People across time and across the earth have recognized the importance of words and ideas in bringing communities together. At Brooklyn Latin, we are no exception, and we express our gratitude to the 4 discipuli who recorded themselves so that we could all experience declamation together. Please mentally prepare yourself, as you would before declamation in person, to be attentive and to be open to being surprised, entertained, and inspired by this diverse selection of pieces chosen by your fellow discipuli. Without any further ado, incipiamos. Let us begin. Our first declaimer from Class 3 is Ariana Alonso.
Dearest members of the TBLS community, my name is Ariana Alonso Flores, a first-generation daughter of proud Mexican immigrant parents. I'm more than proud to be able to deliver the phenomenal, beautifully raw story of an immigrant's journey to U.S. soil. Luz Mirella Zimora, a Mexican immigrant, crossed the U.S. border 3 times. Her stories caught the attention of Darcy Cortua, who recorded them in a The Atlantic article, 3 Border Crossings, 1 Immigrant's Journey. Her first story, of which you'll hear in a few moments, began when she was just 15, seeking her grandmother in California. Suffering the last 4 years from the molestation of a family friend, she began fearing for her life, fearing she would be raped. In a world in which stories of immigrants are dismissed, I ask of you to tell the stories of the silence. Relish the songs of beings wronged. Declaim poems for the love that are unable to tell of stories of the world they faced. We are the product of generations who lived and fought for our breath, who give us the chance to leave our fingerprints, to make a difference, to create our own story. Stories worth telling. Building a foundation not only for this country, but I dare say the whole world. Immigrants have negotiated, sacrificed so much to someday live without fears and conflicts they'd otherwise fight against. This story was initially chosen to call attention to the disturbing cruelty the Latino community are forced to tackle in direct relation to the election of our current president. But immigrant communities over the world are facing similar prejudices. Thus, I am inclined to speak concerning both issues. There's no damn humane justification for the absolute atrocity African, Native, Middle Eastern, and other countless communities are forced to experience, placed in harm's path to survive, provide, and protect their families. Neither for the horrific acts taken against the Asian community due to the racist perspectives and myths of completely arrogant children. Rationalizing degradation is utter bullshit. It's inhumane and disgusting. Hispanics shouldn't have to worry whether leaving their homes will forever keep them from their loved ones, nor tolerate our children, fucking babies, being kept in concentration camps because we're bringing drugs and crime, because we're rapists, because we come from shithole countries. Immigrants will continue being present in the world, your prosperity. Immigrants have stories. Keep those stories alive. The following is belovingly dedicated to all immigrants. To the lovely Kimberly Gwen, whose love and dedication to sharing stories will never cease in our community. Be overwhelmed by the reality of what an immigrant story is and the truth it offers. Without further ado, pick up a pen, rise up, and join the fight through Luz Mirella Zimora's first immigration story. I didn't have any money. I didn't know anything about the United States. At the bus station in Tijuana, this guy came up to us. You going to El Norte? I can hook you up. I have friends. You'll make it in 3 hours. We got a house where you guys can rest and stay till it's safe to cross. He keeps on saying, You can trust me, I'm not going to hurt you. We made it to the house. The upstairs was just a big room with 4 walls, no windows, and a metal door. No bed, only some sheets on the floor. There was this big lady, tall, kind of old, 45 maybe. Her husband was short and fat. They gave us showers and clothes, and they fed us. They put us in the room upstairs, saying we're gonna sleep there and that they gotta lock the door for our safety. And if we gotta pee or whatever, they gave us a bucket. I got that feeling in my heart saying something's wrong. Why are they gonna lock us in the room? We slept there that night, and then in the morning, we heard a lot of people talking, yelling, partying. We heard steps on the stairs. We're happy because it's time for us to either go away or go. Do something. I don't know. They're supposed to let us know whatever happens. Here comes the lady of the house, and she's just barely wearing clothes. She opens the door and says, "Good morning, my beautifuls, my princesses." We just stared at her. Right behind her come 3 men, and this guy is looking at me. He goes, "I'll pick her." The other guy is, yeah, I'll pick her too. And the other guy, I don't know, I didn't know what was going on, but my friend, she was hugging me, and she said, "No, not her. Leave her, let her go. She's 15. They took me downstairs, where there was this little room. They raped me. That went on for days and nights, and all I got to eat was a glass of milk with an egg in it, raw, mixed in. They say it will give me energy. For days I was locked in that room. Finally, the guy that brought us over there came in the room and took a look at me. And he was like, "Are you okay?" I said nothing. Couldn't talk. He took off his jacket and put it on me because I was naked. He said, "I'm gonna get you girls out of here. They tricked me. They said if I bring more girls here, they were not gonna do this again." It was so hard for me to trust him. There were no other choices. I had nothing else. Everything inside me was gone. So whatever comes next, it's fine. They're gonna cut me? They're gonna kill me? Fine. It's better than this. He opened the door and he told me to stay behind him, and we started walking upstairs. He opened the door where my friends were. They had been raped too. We started walking downstairs. Out the back, he had a car and said he opened the trunk and he said we'll be safe there, and then he started driving. After a while, he let us out and said, "I've got a friend. He's gonna help you girls out. Cross. He's gonna take a shortcut." He told me, "I hope you'll forgive me for what I've done." This new coyote said we were gonna walk for 3 to 4 hours to this bridge. We're gonna go underneath it, and then we're gonna make it to this big fence, and you girls gotta jump off it. Those 3 hours became 3 days that we were walking. I don't know, maybe we were lost? It was dry and rocky, and it was hot. We didn't have much water. We had to sip it and hold it in our mouths. We ended up sleeping in open fields, and I was so worried about scorpions. I don't care about snakes, but I did care about scorpions. We finally made it to the bridge and went underneath, and then we kept walking. We saw this big fence on the US side. It was chain link, 10 or 12 feet, like the ones in prison with barbed wire on top. Some parts of the wire were broken where others had crossed before. My friend knew what to do and climbed up the chain link and jumped off it. She was on the other side calling, "Go, go! There he comes, there he comes! You better come soon!" And we were like, "Who's humming?" And she calls La Migra. The coyote started running and disappeared. Here comes the other girl, and whoosh, she jumped off that fence. I was the last one, and I'm so afraid, shaking. I don't know what to do. I don't know who La Migra is or what they're gonna do to me. So I just started running, and I was getting close to the fence. I climbed up halfway up, but I couldn't make it, and I fell back. Here comes this big old horse with the immigration guy on it. He was telling me something in English. I didn't speak English then. I didn't know what the words were. He got off the horse and walked to me with a mean face. He was a big guy with red hair and blue eyes. Really blue eyes. Beautiful eyes. And then he was asking me questions. I couldn't understand what he was saying, and finally he said it in Spanish. ¿Tu nombre? Mirella. Mirella. Sí. He grabbed my face with one hand and looked at me. He turned me to the big fence and said, Aquí, go, 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 ve, ve, aquí. I started walking where he pointed. I saw a big hole under the fence. There were branches covering it, but obviously he knew it was there. He told me to go underneath, cross from there. I moved the branches and went through. I was a little girl, skinny. And he got up on his horse and looked at me and said, good luck, and disappeared with his horse, with the dust behind it. Thank you.
Our next declaimer from Class 3 is Justin Williams.
James Baldwin accomplished an incredible amount of things in the 63 years of his life that he had. He was an American novelist, essayist, poet, and activist, all while overcoming the hurdles and stigmatism that came with being an African American, especially during the Civil Rights era. Growing up in Harlem, he deeply valued his education, knowing that it was the only way to make something of himself given his economic and racial circumstances. This led him to becoming a hugely influential writer, well known for his novels such as If Beale Street Could Talk, which was later adapted into a film, and his huge catalog of poems. Despite that, I chose one of his essays, which he directed at New York City, A Talk to Teachers, to perform to you all today because of the unflinching light that it shows on the experiences of African Americans, particularly in relation to education. We're lucky enough to go to a school that's diverse and has a rich system of education, but many people don't even get that opportunity. And I think it's important that we shine light on those experiences so we can ultimately understand each other better and spark more change. My name is Justin Williams, and I will now be declaiming A Talk to Teachers by James Baldwin. Let's begin by saying that we are living through a very dangerous time. Everyone in this room is aware of that in one way or another. We are in a revolutionary station, no matter how unpopular that word has become in our country. Or to put it another way, you must understand that in the attempt to correct so many generations of bad faith and cruelty, when it is operating not only in the classroom, but in society, you will meet the most fantastic, the most brutal, and the most determined resistance. There is no point in pretending that this won't happen. It would seem to me that when a child is born, if I'm the child's parent, it is my obligation to civilize that child. Man is a social animal. He cannot exist without a society. A society, in turn, depends on certain things which everyone within the society takes for granted. The purpose of education, finally, is to create in a person the ability to look at the world for himself, to make his own decisions, to decide for himself whether there is a God in heaven or not, to ask the questions of the universe and then learn to live with those questions is the way he achieves his own identity. But no society is really anxious to have that kind of person around. What societies really, ideally want is a citizenry which will simply obey the rules of society. Now, if a society succeeds in this, that society will surely perish. Now, if what I've tried to sketch has any validity, it becomes thoroughly clear, at least to me, that any Negro who is born in the country and undergoes the American educational system runs the risk of becoming schizophrenic. On the one hand, he is born in the shadow of the stars and stripes, and he is assured that it represents a nation which has never lost a war. He pledges allegiance to that flag which guarantees liberty and justice for all. He is a part of a country in which anyone can be president, and so forth. But on the other hand, he is also assured by his country and his countrymen that he has never contributed anything to civilization, that his past is nothing more than a record of humiliations gladly endured. He is assumed by the Republic that he, his father, his mother, and his ancestors were happily, shiftless, watermelon-eating darkies, that the only value that he has as a black man is proven by one thing, and one thing only, his devotion to white people. And if you think I am exaggerating, examine the myths which proliferate in this country about Negroes. All of this enters the child's consciousness much sooner than we as adults would like to think it does. But as adults, we are easily fooled because we are so anxious to be fooled. But children are different. Children not yet aware that it is dangerous to look deeply at anything, look at everything, look at each other, and draw their own conclusions. They don't have the vocabulary to express what they see, and we, their elders, know how to intimidate them very easily and very soon. But a black child looking at the world around him, though he cannot know what quite to make of it, is aware that there is a reason why his mother works so hard, why his father is always on edge. He is aware that there is some reason why, if he sits down on the front of the bus, his father or his mother slaps him and drags him to the back of the bus. He is aware that there is some terrible weight on his parents' shoulders when it menaces him. And it isn't long. In fact, it begins when he is in school, before he discovers the shape of his oppression. Looking at the society which has produced him, looking at the standards of that society which are not honored by anybody, looking at your churches and the government and the politicians, understand that this structure is operated for somebody else's benefit, not for his. There is nothing in it for him. If he is really cunning, really ruthless, really strong, and many of us are, he becomes a kind of criminal. He becomes a kind of criminal because that's the only way he can live. Harlem and every ghetto in this city, every ghetto in this country is full of people who live outside of the law. They wouldn't dream of calling a policeman. They wouldn't for a moment. Listen to any of those professions of which we are so proud of on the 4th of July. They have turned their backs away from this country forever and totally. They live by their wits and really long to see the day when the entire structure comes down. The point of this is that black men were brought here as a source of cheap labor. They were indispensable to this economy. In order to justify the fact that men were treated as though they were animals, the white republic had to brainwash itself into believing that they were indeed animals and deserved to be treated like animals. Therefore, it is almost impossible for any Negro child to discover anything about his actual history. The reason that this animal, once he suspects his own worth, once he starts believing that he is a man, has begun to attack the entire power structure. This is why America has spent such a long time keeping the Negro in his place. What I am trying to suggest to you is that it was not an accident. It wasn't an act of God. It was not done by well-meaning people muddling into something which they didn't understand. It was a deliberate policy hammered in place in order to make money from black flesh. And now in 1963, because we have never faced this fact, we are in intolerable trouble. Now, if I were a teacher in this school, or any Negro school, and I was dealing with Negro children who were in my care only a few hours every day and would then return to their homes and to the streets, children who have an apprehension of their future which with every hour goes grimmer and darker, I would try to teach them. I would try to make them know that those streets, those houses, those dangers, those agonies by which they are surrounded are criminal. I would try to make each child know that these things are the result of a criminal conspiracy to destroy him. I would teach him that if he intends to be a man, he must at once decide that he's stronger than this conspiracy, and that he must never make peace with it. And that one of his weapons for refusing to make peace with it and for destroying it depends on what he decides that he is worth. I would teach him that there are very currently few standards in this country which are worth a man's respect. That it is up to him to change these standards for the better, for the sake of the life and the health of this country. I would suggest to him that the popular culture as represented on television and in comic books and in movies is based on fantasies, and that this is not a reflection of reality, and that these fantasies are created by very ill people. I would teach him that he doesn't have to be bound by the given expediencies of any given administration, any given policy, any given morality, and that he has the right and the necessity to examine everything.
Our next declaimer from Class 3 is Hengzi Zhu.
Although the Western Roman Empire fell in 476 AD, the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire, continued to thrive with Constantinople, modern-day Istanbul, as its capital. However, all good things must come to an end, and the empire reached its demise in 1453 with the siege and fall of Constantinople by the invading forces led by the Ottoman Sultan Mehmed II of the Ottoman Empire. On the day before the final Ottoman assault, Constantine XI Dragusis Palaiologos, the last Byzantine emperor, delivered his final speech to the citizens of Constantinople, urging everyone to remain faithful and keep resisting. Recorded by George Francis, the emperor's foreman, this speech demonstrates the human spirit when against challenging odds, and the importance of having a positive attitude even in dire situations. Salwete, my name is Hengzi Zhu, and now the speech. Most noble leader, illustrious tribunes, generals, most courageous fellow soldiers, and all loyal honest citizens, you know well that the hour has come. The enemy wishes to oppress us by sea and land, with all his engines and skill to attack us with the entire strength of this siege force. As a snake about to spew its venom, he is in a hurry to devour us, like a savage lion. For this reason, I am imploring you to fight like men with brave souls, as you have done from the beginning up to this day, against the enemy of our faith. I hand over to you my glorious, famous, respected, noble city, our homeland. Well, my brothers, we must fight for our liberty. Our empire, renowned in the past, but presently humbled, low, and exhausted. This Sultan has besieged our city for 57 days with all his strength. The enemy has often been repelled, up to now from walls with shame and dishonor. Yet now too, my brothers, feel no cowardice. Even if small parts of our fortifications have collapsed from the explosions, have faith. I know the countless hordes of the empires will advance against us. They'll attempt to frighten us with loud yells and innumerable battle cries. But you are all familiar with the chattering, and I need say no more about it. For these reasons, my fellow soldiers, prepare yourselves. Take your example from the few elephants of the Carthaginians and how they disperse the numerous cavalry of the Romans with their noise and appearance. If one dumb beast put another to flight, we can surely do better against our enemies. Present your shield, swords, arrows, and spears to them. You are the descendants of the Greeks and the Romans. The siege and the blockade. Every day he is seeking an opportunity to devour us in this city, which Christ blessed Constantine the Great founded. I can tell you that this city mastered the entire universe. She placed beneath her feet Armenia, Albania, Syria, Mesopotamia, Phoenicia, Arabia, Judea, Macedonia, Italy, Spain, Africa. Now he wants to enslave her and throw the yoke upon the mistress of cities and turn us into stables for his horses and camels. Consider then, my brother and comrades in arms, how the commemoration of our death, our memory, fame, and freedom can be rendered eternal. Thank you.
Our final declaimer from Class 1 is Desmond Kuiper.
Science fiction has never quite been given its due. While more realistic stories certainly do have their value, science fiction stories have the ability to transport us to worlds we never thought imaginable. Worlds perfectly tailored to suit the needs of the author's message. This is the case with Dune, a personal favorite of mine, published by Frank Herbert in 1965. In the excerpt I will declaim, one of the characters, Liet Kynes, finds himself abandoned in the desert of Arrakis, also called Dune, a planet he has devoted his life to studying and to making green and habitable. He is killed by an explosion of spice, the planet's most essential resource, from beneath the surface. As I describe his final moments, please let yourself be enthralled by the rich imagery of the desert, and take note of the amount of thought that has gone not only into character and story, but setting, and the ecosystem that Herbert has created. Please also take note of the imagery of the desert, now so relevant to our understanding of what our own future may hold. My name is Desmond, and this is Dune by Frank Herbert. The man crawled across the surface of the dune top. He was a mote caught in the heat of the noon sun. He was dressed only in the torn remnants of a jubba cloak, his skin bare to the heat through the tatters. The hood of the cloak had been ripped off, but the man had fashioned a turban from a torn strip of cloth. Wisps of sandy hair protruded from it, matched by a sparse beard and thick brows. Beneath the blue within blue eyes, remnants of a dark stain stretched down to his cheek. A matted depression across mustache and beard showed the path which a stillsuit tube had marked out from nose to catch pockets. The man stopped half across the dune top, arms stretched down the slit face. Blood had clotted on his back and on his arms and legs. Patches of yellow-gray sand clung to his wounds. Slowly, he brought his hands under him, pushed himself to his feet, stood there swaying, and even in this random action, there was a trace of once precise movement. "My name is Liet Kynes," he said, addressing the empty horizon, his voice a hoarse caricature of the strength that had once known. "I am His Imperial Majesty's planetologist," he whispered. "Planetary ecologist to Arrakis. I am steward of this land." He stumbled, fell sideways along the crusty surface of the windswept face. His hands dug feebly into the sand. "I am steward of this land," he thought. He realized that he was semi-delirious, that he should dig himself beneath the sand, find the relatively cool underlayer, and bury himself with it. But he could already smell the rank, semi-sweet esters of a pre-spice pocket somewhere beneath the surface. He knew the danger within this fact certainly better than any other freeman. If he could smell the pre-spice mass, that meant the gases beneath the surface were nearing explosive pressure. He had to get away from here. His hands made weak, scrabbling motions across the Dune face. A thought rang across his mind, clear, precise. The real wealth of a planet is in how we take part in its landscape, how we take part in that basic source of civilization, agriculture. And he thought how strange it was that the mind, focused for so long on a single track, could not be moved from that track. The Harkonnen troopers had left him here without water or a stillsuit, thinking that a worm would get him if the desert didn't. They had thought it amusing to leave him alive to die by inches at the impersonal hands of his planet. They always did have difficulty killing freemen, Canis thought. We don't die easily. I should be dead now. I will be dead soon, but I can't stop being an ecologist. The hawks circled overhead, screeching their frustrations. They knew what was happening here. Any desert creature would. Am I a desert creature? Canis thought. Can you hear me, Father? I am a desert creature. He felt the bubble lift him, felt the dust whirlpool engulf him, dragging him down into the darkness. For a moment, the coolness and the sensation of moisture were blessed relief. Then, as his own planet killed him, it occurred to Canis that his father and all the other scientists had been wrong, that the most persistent principles of the universe were accident and error. Even the hawks could appreciate these facts. Thank you.
On behalf of the entire Brooklyn Latin community, I thank today's declaimers for their performances and the work that went into them. Let's all take a moment now individually to reflect on a thought, a turn of phrase, or an expression of emotion which captured our imagination and which we will take with us into our lives after today. We encourage those of you who were moved by something you heard today to consider participating in public declamation in the future. Find a piece of excellent writing that expresses something meaningful to you, something which you think is important for your school community to hear. We are eager to have pieces from any genre or topic and from many different styles of writing. Now, at the close of this venerable school tradition, and with the words of our declaimers still in our ears and our minds, curate ut valeatus, take care that you be well, until we meet again.